Collectively, innocent people have spent 3,942 years in prison for crimes they were not responsible for. This number highlights a current issue within our justice system. Hi, my name is Mary O'Malley, and as a political science major, I have studied cases with wrongful convictions and how organizations such as the Innocence Project has worked in helping them. Wrongful convictions is something that backtracks for decades and has been happening at a frequent rate, affecting thousands of people. By understanding this issue, we can recognize flaws within our justice system. Today, I'll be talking to you about a nonprofit organization titled the Innocence Project and their use of DNA testing when helping with wrongful convictions and how they advocate for justice system policy reforms. Today, I will be informing you of the Innocence Project's origins and aspirations, how they operate in helping people by going over a case ourselves, and examining the differences they've made within our country. Let's begin with origins, how they became to be. Co-founders Barry C. Scheck and Peter J. Neufeld had founded the organization in 1992 to prevent wrongful convictions, free the innocent, and create a more accurate legal system. Jester's 2013 article, The Innocence Project at 20, interview with Barry Scheck, talks about how when Scheck and Neufeld were attorneys, they had worked with a client named Maureen Coakley, a man who was convicted for rape in which he did not commit the crime. After witnessing how DNA testing was able to bring justice to Coakley and make him be a free walking individual after spending so much time wrongfully in jail, they wanted to apply the help of DNA testing and the difference it made in Coakley's life to other citizens who may need it as well, therefore inspiring the Innocence Project. Roberts and Weathard's 2009 book, Assisting the Factually Innocent, the compatibility and contradictions of the Innocence Project, claims that they had formed the organization at Benjamin N. Cardozo School of Law at Yeshiva University. This is where they had outlined their goals. Benjamin and Peter had both equipped a network of citizens, students, and organizations in which they had utilized DNA testing. They had examined past wrongful cases with wrongful convictions and had studied them, and they advocate for policy reforms. This is where they had planned to educate attorneys, provide information to the public that was not there before, and prevent inaccuracies. Now we can shift into how the Innocence Project operates in cases by going over one ourselves through the use of DNA testing and forensics analysis. According to Fabricant's article, One Innocence Project, published on May 30th, 2023, it states that exonerations over the past 15 years has been based on misconceptions. According to the statistics from the article, 70% of those misconceptions were based on false eyewitnesses. It had stated that the Innocence Project had finally introduced concrete scientific evidence that was able to dictate whether testimonies and eyewitness statements were either true or false. Outerberg's 2019 article, The Innocence Project Cases, Christopher Tapp, talks about a real-life scenario where Christopher Tapp had served 21 years in prison for the murder of Angie Dodger after being prosecuted in 1998. His prosecution was purely based on the fact that an eyewitness testimony had stated that Christopher Tapp was seen conversing with his friend Benjamin Hobbs, who was previously convicted for sexual assault the night before Angie Dodger's death. The eyewitness testimony has said that they had both planned on killing her the night before her death. Yet, the DNA evidence left at the crime scene, such as the semen, did not match Christopher Tapp, meaning that his sentencing was purely based off a testimony rather than DNA evidence, as there was none. The Innocence Project had gotten involved in 2008, where they had argued to have mitochondria testing be involved, in which forensic analysis had examined hair follicles left at the crime to see if it matched Christopher Tapp, in which it did not. Yet, prosecutors did not care about this, and they continued keeping Christopher Tapp in prison. Then, in 2017, the Innocence Project brought in Parabanana Labs, which is an organization that works with forensics analysis. They utilized more advanced DNA technology in 2017, such as an ancestry database, to find out the true owner of that semen, in which they had found Brian Drips. Drips had then later confessed in 2019, which had led to the freeing of Tapp. By giving wrongfully convicted individuals a second chance, the justice system started examining differences that needed to be made based off their own overview of how everything was going on. The Innocence Project had ignited numerous changes in the legal systems across our country. 2013 Article 1 Innocence Project by Fabricant claims that the Innocence Project had successfully introduced doubt based off their successes in past trials. People were starting to question how our court systems are actually going on their convictions and realizing that there needed to be reforms with legislation. Roberts and Weathers' 2009 book, Assessing the Factually Innocent, The Compatibility and Contradictions of the Innocence Project, claims that state and federal governments were both trying to make policy differences to have a more trustworthy legal system, such as states with the death penalty from past Governor Ryan of Illinois had turned death sentences into life sentences in case they had gotten their convictions wrong. Past legislations were now made as some states were now mandated to videotape interrogations and testimonies to prevent any manipulation or coherences. And the Justice for All Act was finally signed on October 30th, 2004, where the government was now enforced to provide funding and make sure that it was accessible for defendants to have enhanced DNA analysis and collection in all 50 states. Now that we've come to the end, I've taught you what inspired the Innocence Project by going over their experience with Coakley. I've taught you how they work with defendants by examining a past case such as Christopher Tapp and how they use DNA analysis to free him. And I've taught you how they've actually made changes in the government by urging and motivating legislation to pass, which has expanded the people's rights. Innocence Project now wants to make sure that the past number, 3,942 years of people who had spent in prison undeservingly, is now happening at a slower and smaller rate. I hope that you are now more informed about the Innocence Project and informed on errors that have been made in the justice system. Thank you. My name is Miriam Wally.